All right, my friends, welcome back to the Reisinger build. That's right, we've been building this house start to finish with our friends at Builders First Source. And check it out, it's looking great, isn't it? Concrete guys are here. We're expecting concrete for the driveway in about 2 hours. I got the electricians on site, I got the plumbers on site. We got a ton going on. Now on this episode specifically, we're gonna focus on electrical and plumbing finish out. You know, I've got to get my temporary electric final from my city inspector before I can get a meter on the back of the house. And then once that meter's in place, I can light up the house, I can look at all the final finishes and fits, make sure everything's looking good. That also allows me to though commission the mechanical systems, which will be the very next episode after this. On this particular episode though, we're gonna be installing our Champion backup power generator system powered by propane. We're gonna be installing a really cool water softener system I bet you've not seen before, called the Drop system from Chandler Water Systems. A lot of cool stuff happening, a lot of nerdy details to dig into. This is the Reisinger build in partnership with Builders First Source. Let's get going.
A Build Original series in partnership with Builders First Source. The Reisinger build.
All right guys, this episode is sponsored by Champion Power Equipment, the Drop Connect Softener System, and the Propane Education and Research Council. Let's get going. Okay y'all, plumber is here and he's just about ready to start installing our softener system. We're gonna be installing the Drop system. This is a really cool system, a lot of options, but the point here is, or the reason why is, I'm on city water. City of Austin water is very hard. At an old house I had where I did not have a softener, I literally had to descale my tankless water heater about every 6 months, or it would scale up and cast that calcium deposit into my house that it was a huge pain. I basically had to take all my filters off, all my aerators, and declog them and descale the tankless unit. A softener makes a big difference for a house for a lot of reasons. Besides just calcium deposits, people love it for their hair doesn't have that kind of staticky feel. Anyways, we're gonna be installing this system. More to talk about here, but I wanted to talk about prep, and then I'll come back to that. So, this wall is kind of our plumbing input wall. Remember, we're in the garage, but this is an air-conditioned space. I've got my recessed carrier HVAC system up here that will both heat and cool the space, so don't be concerned that we're outside of the envelope. This is actually gonna be a warm space, even in the cold winter. Water softener loop, you're used to seeing these before. This is basically the water inline, and actually behind this white little OD panel here is my main water shutoff. So this shuts the water off to the whole house. So now the water's on, now the water's off. I'll put that panel back on, so if the homeowner needs to, they can do it. But actually, this Drop system has a really cool leak detection and a remote shutoff. We'll talk about that later. But then the water comes to here to this loop. And the idea being, this loop brings the city water, sends it through the softener system, and then sends it back to the rest of the house. So this loop is really important to get that soft water to the house. Electrical, because this system needs power and it actually has a Wi-Fi controller. We'll come back to that. And then it needs a drain as well. So this knockout box right here in this OD Moda box, we'll knock that out. We'll have a drain now for the softener. Now something else I want to point out, see this white pipe that's in here? That is the drain from the condensate line above. So that will drain that condensate down. So we actually need a Y fitting. We'll get that later in the episode. And then lastly, I've got another one down here as well. And all this is doing is giving me access in the future to the backside of my Aquar hose bib. So right behind here is the Aquar hose bib, which is a frost-free hose bib. It actually shuts the water back off into the warm part of the house. And I wanted access to those. You know, they should easily give us a couple decades of service, but 30 years from now, if that's a problem or starts leaking or just needs replaced, I want a good service access. And I thought, instead of having to take the plywood off, let's just put this box in here. I'll get my label maker later on in the episode and we'll label everything. It's not that I don't trust the plumbers, but you know, if they're installing this, there might be some solvent involved. So Nathan and I grabbed a couple rolls of ram board. We're gonna lay out just a little section here. That way if the guys are using some solvent, it doesn't spill in my concrete. Always smart to have good protection in place for your plumbers, your electricians, anybody that's doing final work over finished surfaces, including a concrete garage. You want to put a little ram board down. That's always a good practice. With that being said, let's get the plumber in here. We'll start installing this drop softener system, and I'll tell you some of the unique features. Guys, let's take a second and talk about our softening system. This is by Chandler Water Systems, and this happens to be the drop system. Now, they make systems for both well and city. We're on city here. So this happens to be their City Smart water softener, which in addition to hardness, in other words, softening the water, is also going to remove chlorine and chloramine. Plus, it has some really cool features right here that's part of the system that's kind of built into the system. So let's start first on softness and why you need a softener. Now, I've actually lived in this neighborhood for a long time. The water here is very hard from the city. And my first house did not have a softening system. And I gotta tell you, my tankless water heater scaled up so regularly and would throw off that scale into my system. It was absolutely horrible. So whenever we build or remodel in this neighborhood, we always include a softening system. Now this one is more than just a softener, but let me tell you quickly about how the softening works, just in case you don't know. There's a salt tank right here, and people think that the water coming out of a softener is salty. That is not true. If you've never had one before, you're not gonna taste saltiness. What the salt is doing is it's helping to regenerate this tank right here. All the hardness is removed and softening is actually happening in this tank. This has a resin inside the tank, and as the water comes in from the city into the tank, it's filtered through this resin bath, which actually does a process to remove that hardness and soften that water. And then at nighttime, when you're not using it, it regenerates with some salty water from this tank into this tank. It basically back flushes it. So this blue line you see here is actually to the drain. So anytime you put a softener in, you need a softener loop so you can get water from the city and then back into your house. You need a drain line, which we've got here. And then in our case, we also need power. This system has a few things that are powered, as well as some additional things that are really cool that happen through their app. They have this app called the Drop app. And this top controller right here has some additional functionality. A few things that I really like. Number one, this will tell you your actual at the moment water usage and your over time water usage, but it also has a leak detection system built into this. So if this system senses, hey, we shouldn't be using water now, we can actually turn it off either remotely through the app, or the system can also turn itself off without your involvement through this. This is a very cool system. Now, they also make some remote sensors that I can place in specific places, like underneath my dishwasher, underneath my fridge water line, that will say, hey, I'm sensing water here, there shouldn't be any. It'll send a signal back to this that will turn it off. So there's a lot of really interesting functionality here. But the other thing I like about this system, that it's gonna filter out the chlorine or the chloramine, depending on how your utility is sanitizing the water coming into your house. The water coming into your house, we do want that chlorine in the water. It's gonna sanitize it in the pipes. Once it gets to here though, we can filter it out. And this is one of the only systems I've seen that does the softening and filters out that chlorine at the same time. That's a really big deal. Now you're gonna wanna download the Drop app. They've got great instructions here. It makes it really easy. You can use a QR code. And then I've got this Drop hub right here that we're gonna be putting up in the mechanical room, so that it can catch great Wi-Fi and it will connect to this, and that's where all that functionality happens. But in that Drop app, you're gonna notice there's some really great water usage stats in there. There's a lot of good information, as well as that ability to remotely turn on and off the water. So I could be out of the house at work, get a sensor that, hey, there's a problem, and we could remotely shut off the water. That's a really cool feature to have built into this unit. The other thing about this unit that I like is because it knows how many gallons are going through it, it's only going to regenerate and use that salt to regenerate the softening medium in here only when it's necessary based on my actual usage. So it's not going to do it all the time, dump a bunch of water down the drain and use a bunch of salt. It's only going to do it basically as needed. And by the way, these bags of salt right here, this actually holds 2 bags to start with. And then there's a really cool system in here, which is this kind of arm that you see here, that allows it to monitor the salt usage, so that when my app gives me a notification, I actually have up to a week to add more salt into that tank. But it's really straightforward, very easy to use system. I gotta say, I'm really impressed. Another feature here that's really cool is there's a battery backup. So if we lose power, we're still going to be able to detect leaks and manage remotely. And of course, this thing's very builder friendly and retrofit friendly. Super easy to install. The plumber that came out and did this took about maybe an hour, hour and a half to fully install the system. Very impressed with the speed. So soft water, absolutely a must for a house, especially if you have any hardness. And remember, you can use this if you're on a well as well. This could be used on brand new construction, or you could retrofit this into an existing house. I'm really impressed with Chandler as a company. Family-owned company. They're on like second or third generation ownership. They really know what they're doing when it comes to water. So go check out their website. We'll have a link below so you can learn more specifically about this system, but they also have a lot of other really interesting products. Big thanks to Chandler for sponsoring today's episode. All right, y'all, this is not plumbing or electrical related, but a couple tips here I wanted to talk about. We're about to pour this driveway, and this is the existing foundation for the house. It's really important to dowel in between the house and the driveway to marry the concrete. And you're noticing we're using steel dowels. You saw earlier in the video, we used some fiberglass dowels on the slab in the house. We don't want to use fiberglass here that would actually shear off. So we've doweled this between the driveway and the foundation. The other thing you're going to notice is we haven't installed them yet, but we've drilled the holes where all the orange paint marks are. We're going to dowel into the existing apron. We really wanted to keep the apron because frankly that requires a whole nother inspection process to eliminate the apron, to basically rip it out and re-pour it. It was in good shape, so we kept it. But if you notice on previous episodes, the driveway didn't match up with the garage, so we had to re-pour the driveway, and the guys have done a real nice job sloping this and meeting this. Looks we got a dump truck coming, so we should probably get out of the way. And concrete's about an hour and a half away, so we got some exciting stuff happening. All right, y'all, we got 10 yards of concrete to pour to get this driveway. I want you to notice how it's flat between the driveway and the lead walk to the house. That's part of the visitability ordinance that I have here in the city of Austin. They don't allow us to have steps into the house. It's got to be just a straight shot. So no steps in that sidewalk. Everything goes right in. A couple things I want to point out though. We got some sleeves in the driveway. You can see them over here. There's some big ones. These are it's probably a 4-inch. All this is just a 4-inch PVC pipe coming out past the driveway. It's running all the way to the other side. So now when the landscaper needs to put a water line through there, or maybe we need to add a driveway electrical or whatever, we got at least 2 conduits or 2 sleeves everywhere. We also have 2 at the sidewalk area. If you walk over here, you'll see those. And I always like to take a picture of those with my phone because they invariably get buried. You forget how far they are. So there's 2 right here, just coming through this short section. They're just a couple feet back. So if someone does decide to do landscape and we need irrigation here for shrubs or whatever, they'll be able to get through there. But again, have that photo on your phone. That way you can refer back to it. And you'll also notice all the dowels got completed at the apron and all the dowels got completed here. Now, something else that I want to mention, we've got a expansion joint material in here. This is like a kind of like an asphalt impregnated felt. And then they put a snap cap on there for me. In the future, I may come back and do some self-leveling sealant on there. It looks really crisp and really clean. With this snap cap, I can just pop that out and we can do that SL1 sealant on there. But we'll let these guys finish up this driveway. This is probably only a 45-minute pour. It's gonna look great over here. One thing that's important for inspections is to make the inspector feel like you've weather sealed things on the outside. Now, of course, we are doing some weather sealing, but if you watched our previous episodes, everything that goes through the house is watertight at the zip system sheathing layer. So it's both water and airtight back there. Everything we're doing back here is really either cosmetics or it's optics for the inspector. Now, if this was a traditionally built house, let's say, where things weren't sealed to the zip system sheathing, this would be super important. But for us, this is kind of a belt and suspenders. So Nathan went around, put a layer of Lexel around all these exterior boxes. This is my low voltage coming into the house. He's also doing it over here where I've got my electrical transfer switches. My inspector wants to see that because, again, he doesn't necessarily know that is sealed back at the zip system layer. So Lexel is a great choice for this. It's clear, it dries clear, and it really sticks tenaciously to everything in the job. So this is a great choice. If we wanted to paint it, I probably would switch to Big Stretch, like what we used on all our mitered corners on the house. Big Stretch is in here, and now that everything's all painted up, looking fabulous. So Sashco, they make some fabulous products. Okay, y'all, confession to make here. I actually messed something up in our water heater closet, and Nathan is correcting an error slash kind of belt and suspendering it. This water heater closet, if you remember, has that Schluter Ditra on the subfloor because I've got an insulated subfloor below us. So I want to make sure we never get water below the subfloor. So we tiled into this space. We did that Schluter Ditra, which is that kind of orange plastic membrane, which can also waterproof. And then I connected that membrane to my walls with Curdy Band, which is that waterproofing material that's used for tile showers. Now in this case though, I put that Curdy Band right onto the Advantech. And actually that's against the manufacturer's recs. They say that you need to put Curdy Band either on drywall or on Curdy board because we want no expansion to occur. If I've basically adhered that to that Advantech, and if that wood had some movement, we could actually break that waterproofing band. So I'm against the manufacturer's recs here. I'm not super worried that we're gonna have a problem. However, I've never really seen much movement in Advantech. It's a really high grade material, and these walls are coated in Advantech, or lined in Advantech, I should say. And then I just painted them gray so it would look like a kind of a blankish space when you open the door. I like the way it turned out. Now we've got some lighting in here for the video to make it a little better lit. You can see all the slight imperfections. It's not gonna look like that normally when it's a water heater closet. But what Nathan's doing at the last kind of hour here is running a fat bead of Lexel between our tile floor and where that Curdy Band is. So if there was some kind of break in that Curdy Band, that Lexel is gonna really help waterproof that. Lastly, we're gonna put some cove base down. So he's already got this pre-cut. This is a commercial detail. You see this is in offices all over. This is just a vinyl product that this part will go against the floor and then this will go against the walls. We're probably gonna also set this in a bead of Lexel when we set it down. And that way, I just have that belt and suspenders. We wanna make sure if this thing ever were to get a catastrophic leak, that it would go down the floor drain. Another thing that's going to happen in the future, we'll have to try and point this out at our final episode. After that water heater's set, we're gonna put some type of threshold in here. Marble threshold, a T molding, we could do something out of stainless. We just need to make sure that if there's water building up in here, it doesn't roll out, but it is encouraged to go down the drain. And speaking of the drain, you may be wondering why there's mineral oil on the job. This is not for my constipation. What we're doing here is we're gonna be filling the traps with mineral oil. A standard trap that you'd have in a bathroom, P-trap we're talking, gets filled with water every time you shower or use a sink. This though will be generally dry most of the time, and I didn't want to do a trap primer. If this was connected to the sewer system, I'd have to have a trap primer, something that would put water in there on occasion so that trap would always stay wet. This one, however, though, just drains to the outside. You'll see a white pipe on the foundation. This is going to be a dry pipe, except for the catastrophic leak of maybe this floor drain, the drain that's underneath my dishwasher, or maybe the floor drain that's in my bathroom here. They have P-traps, and those P-traps need to be filled with something that won't evaporate. So instead of putting water in there that I'd be worried will evaporate, we're gonna fill these traps with a bottle of mineral oil. Mineral oil doesn't go rancid and doesn't evaporate. It basically just stays inert for the life of the house. So we're gonna put all these traps that are going to the outside with mineral oil. That being said, let's let Nathan get back to work, and then we'll be all prepped and ready for the plumbers to install our LG heat pump water heater. Okay, y'all, electricians are making great progress in getting our Champion 22 kW home standby generator going. My crew actually moved this bad boy this morning before I got to the job site. I was frankly a little bit bummed that I didn't get to move it. This is not a lightweight unit. I want to say it's around 600 pounds. But if you look at that footage, the guys did a great job. We used those forearm straps. It comes palletized. We put this pre-made pad down already for it, and it actually bolts into that pad to keep it all in one place. And then of course, all the propane infrastructure was in place ahead of time. We basically trenched from the front of the yard where we put that 500-gallon propane tank back here, and then also from here to the side of the house where my electrical meter is. We have overhead power from the city of Austin. I've got an outdoor span panel and an indoor span panel, and my generator transfer switch, which is commonly called an ATS or an automatic transfer switch, is also mounted outdoors. So the deal with this unit is when we have an outage, this thing is going to fire up and transfer almost immediately. I have the kind of little brother to this unit, which used to be the biggest model. I have the 14 kW model. And on mine, when I've lost power, which actually has happened quite a bit in this neighborhood, it takes maybe 3 to 4 seconds to actually fire up the generator. And then the generator needs to run for a couple seconds to kind of get up to speed. And then that automatic transfer switch will go, all right, let's switch the power from the grid, which is down, the meter has no power, to this. I'm saying it's probably 20, maybe as much as 30 seconds that you're down with power, and then you're good to go. So you may want to think about a UPS for your computer if that was running, but I would tell you that even my electronic clocks in the house, things like that, they never lost. The times that I've lost power, this kicks on so quick that I've never had to reset a clock, let's put it that way. You might also want to consider like a small battery UPS for your internet for those few seconds. But man, this thing was a lifesaver. At my house, I put the smaller version in, the 14 kW. And when we had that last big freeze in Austin, which was it 2020 or 2021? We were actually out of power for 5 days in this neighborhood. That was a really big deal. I had a neighbor that was running a portable outdoor generator. You know, he ran it 20 feet from his house and ran a cord in. He was alternating between plugging his refrige in and plugging in like a portable space heater. It was miserable for him. And I actually had a lot of neighbors that moved out. They went to friends' houses across town. They tried to get in a hotel. They were packed. But myself, and actually I've put these in a couple other houses in this neighborhood where I've done work, we had zero issues. 5 days, everything worked fabulous. So I'm a big fan. And when you put them in at this stage of construction, you can put all the infrastructure in. It's really not that expensive. Champion's a great choice. They actually show you their online pricing for these units. They're not bad at all. And then when the electrician is putting this in along with wiring the new house, everything's really straightforward. It's not hard at all. A couple things I want to mention. We decided to go propane for this unit. I actually have natural gas available in this neighborhood, but I wanted that extra reliability of having my own fuel source. You know, in a lot of areas of the country where wildfires are an issue, they not only shut off the electric ahead of a wildfire issue, but they shut off the natural gas lines as well. So having your own propane tank, especially a buried propane tank like I've got here, it really means that we're totally independent. That 500-gallon tank coupled with this unit, which is about 20% more efficient than a lot of the competitors out there, means I could go a long time. Actually, I should do the math. I wonder if it's 3 weeks or something like that. It's a crazy amount of time that you can go on one of these units. And they do want you to change the engine oil at about 100 hours of run time. And you also have to factor in the exercise time. This can be set to exercise once a week for about 15 minutes. So you got to factor that in. That adds up over time. We want to make sure that our homeowners know the maintenance plan for this, that they can either do themselves or get a service to come out. And the other thing it doesn't ship with is some 12-volt batteries. There's two 12-volt batteries. It's actually a 24-volt starter system, which they tell me helps aid in getting this to start at really cold temperatures. So put those batteries in, and also remember, even with, let's say, a really good AGM battery, you probably want to replace those batteries prophylactically about every 5-ish years, 7 years, something like that. Now, this unit has power from the grid to trickle charge those batteries, so you're good. You don't need to worry about adding an additional trickle charger. And if you're doing this in a retrofit situation, they have some really neat technology. They call it the Axis technology, which allows you to use your existing wiring to communicate. And it's basically like a load management type system. Now, we don't have to use that here because we do have a span panel on this house, which is a really big deal when it comes to load management. And we're planned for future solar in this house. We don't have it installed now, but our homeowner has been talking about that. So I suspect that between this Champion, maybe even future batteries, we've got a really robust system going on here, and that all is going to be controlled and managed by the span panel, which is a marriage made in heaven here. With that being said, let's get the electricians back to finish up this last wiring here, and then we'll talk some more about this when we get a little further along. Hey, a couple of things I wanted to mention about propane, and specifically why I like propane. You may not know this, but propane is a very stable and long-lasting fuel. Unlike gasoline that degrades over time, that propane in the tank will not degrade. So if I'm not using this generator, we don't have an outage, let's say, I'm not worried that in 5 years or 10 years, I need to actually change out that propane. It's a sealed system. There's no degradation over time. There's no need to add anything to it like you might add a fuel stabilizer in your antique car stored in the garage. This is a really stable and reliable fuel source. And by the way, the EPA designates this as a clean fuel with low carbon emissions. So you can feel good about this as a fuel source as well. Now, the thing that I really like about it is that it supports energy independence. You know, we're gonna have really reliable power here, but if we have unreliable power, that propane is gonna absolutely support this generator on the job site, and we're gonna be able to go a long, long time on that 500-gallon tank. We probably could have gotten away, frankly, with a smaller tank, with let's say a 250-gallon tank, and we would have had no problem with a week outage, but it wasn't that much more expensive to go up to that 500, so that was a really big deal for us. We could also tap into that propane source if we want to add a pool heater in this back of the house here, any other type of heating source. This is a really great power source for that. And don't forget that propane generators also work with battery solar setups. You know, batteries are awesome, but eventually they do run out and they need recharged by solar. And if we don't have great conditions, it's been a snowstorm and that snow's covering your panels, those batteries are not going to recharge. So I'm seeing a lot of customers, even if they have solar and battery, still opting for propane and a propane generator like we've got at this house. I think it's really good to be thinking about all these scenarios and what could happen. One stat that I pulled down off the web that I think is pretty interesting, if we would have had a 75 kW generator, let's say 3 times bigger than this, with a 250-gallon tank, we could run up to 5 days on that. So with this being a third smaller, that means that on a 250-gallon tank, we could have gone 15 days, and actually we're probably set up for 30 days, which your generator doesn't want to run for 30 days. Hopefully you don't have to run it for 30 days in a row. But what we're saying here is that we've got a lot of backup and a lot of redundancy in this system that we've put in. Hey, for more information on propane, go to propane.com. I opted for propane on my personal house. We opted for propane here. I really like the energy independence and the ability to store my own fuel. So I'm a big fan. Go to propane.com to learn more. Check these out. These linears are gonna look really cool. I'm excited about these. Chelsea found these at Visual Comfort. Now you may know them as Circa Lighting. They rebranded a year or two ago. So my house has the same exact fixtures. Circa is now called Visual Comfort. They make some fabulous stuff. Basically everything in the house, minus some Kohler bathroom fixtures, came from them. But here's where full disclosure / you gotta have a smart project manager when the job comes in. Look how the rough-in boxes, like you can see them over here, these are a 4-inch round box that we've got here. The original spec on this was a Halo 14-inch, I think they call it a flush mount fixture. We typically use that in closets and utility rooms and secondary spaces. Good light, I like Halo fixtures. They're relatively inexpensive. Chelsea was like, oh, these will look really cool and they're not very expensive. This is a little bit of an upgrade. However, I didn't think about this change right here. So what you're seeing is that box would not be hidden by this really sleek linear device. So what we had to do, the electricians, Dane drilled this one out, drilled a hole in just a blank cover plate. Now you wouldn't want to run wires through there first though, so the electricians are putting a grommet in there. That's just a snap together grommet. So now when that wire goes through, there's no sharp metal edges. These are all lined up, they look really good, they're gonna provide lots of light. I think this cover plate will disappear, but in the future, if you want to use these, you would actually just poke the wire through. Now that's a problem for me though in the city of Austin, because any wire that comes through the wall typically is going to need a box on it, or my inspector is not going to pass me on my rough and electrical. So it's a catch-22. You're always figuring these things out. I'm calling this full confession, but really what I'm saying is down to the smallest detail you got to think about, and really it's best to know your fixtures long before you even start framing, frankly, so that you can get everything lined up and looking perfect on the job site. Let's go check out something Nathan's working on for me on plumbing as well while we're in the garage. I'll meet you over here. Okay, something I wanted to fix on the plumbing side. Nathan put this plywood up for us, and I didn't think about this, but we really do want to prevent splashback onto the 3/4 plywood. You can see there's actually a little bit of splash right there now, probably because people were just dumping the hose onto the garage. But what I had Nathan do was make a piece of PVC. This was left over from another job. I think this is actually some AZIC material, 1/2 inch. And we're gonna mount that on the wall, and then we'll put our hose bib on. We can flush it up. And you can actually see it right here. Look at this water that just splashed back. It's landing on the PVC rather than landing on the plywood. We also made it a little bit longer than the plywood, so it would drip off onto the concrete and not be a problem. Then finally, we'll lay a bead of Lexel on the outside just to make sure no water gets behind it. But that's an easy and quick fix. We had a sheet of this left over from a job. I think that's gonna work well. Seamless gutters, man, isn't this awesome? They got a giant machine here that looks like a pasta maker where they put a roll of coil in the back, and basically this just makes a big K-style gutter. They call it K-style because if you look at the end here, it kind of looks like a big K from this angle. That's your typical kind of style that you see on American homes. You can spend a little bit more and you can do a half round. I really like that style, but the beauty of the K-style is you got lots of coverage. It's really easy to add screens in here later. And you can see the guys, as they're making it, they're putting these gutter hangers on, and they're making sure to slide this gutter up underneath the, what's the flashing called at the edge of the roof? I can't think of that term, but basically that edge metal that the roofer puts on, he's sliding this piece right here underneath that edge metal so everything flows nicely into the gutters. This is kind of interesting just for fun. This is GeoCell gutter and seam tripolymer sealant. It's kind of fun. It says cures to a weld-like finish, and doggone it, it does look like it's welded in there, doesn't it? That's kind of neat. You'll never see this because it's inside the gutter, but I'm a sealant nerd, so I like to see what they're using. And then you'll see they got the boxes of Senox in here. So Senox is pre-making all of these in the same color that his coil stock came from. So now all the downspouts, all these gutter elbows, all this stuff. Gutters everywhere. I'm a big fan. It's absolutely the way to go. Man, I love this stage of the game when all my people are here. We got plumbers, we got electricians, we got the low voltage guy coming, gutter guys working out front. But back to being a good project, a smart project manager, I got a tip for you that I've done before that I want to talk to you about. This is where my Sub-Zero is going to get recessed back in here. I decided not to do a drain here, but see that water line right there? I'm worried that if that water line ever broke, that I would get water down below my subfloor, and I don't want that. So kind of a cheap way to do this is to get a pan made that fits this exact space, that has a lip on 3 sides and would kick any water to the front that we would see. So I'll show you that. It's being made at my sheet metal fabrication place right now, and I'll show you what that looks like. And then one more though, that is often the culprit of a problem is the dishwasher. Pardon the trash in here, we gotta do some shop vacuuming, but see that white pipe sticking up? That is the drain that drains to the outside for the dishwasher pan. And there's a couple ways you could make this pan. We could use the Schluter system like we've done in the past for some other places, but we don't want to adhere Schluter directly to cabinetry, right? Because that goes against that violates their the way that they're supposed to do things. So I'm a little concerned about that. Another way to do it though is simply to get a metal pan made, a stainless steel pan that fits this location, has a lip on the front, and then has a down leg, a drain leg basically, into that floor drain. Again, we've got that on order right now. I've got a local guy fabricating that. So when that comes in, we'll show you. In the meantime, plumbers, electricians, everybody's rocking today. We're really trying to get to a temporary electric final, which means basically every plug and switch, the light fixtures are in the house. We don't have a meter yet. You'll notice on the outside they've been working on the service all day today. So if we get that final inspection, the inspector says, okay, we're safe. We've got breakers in just for the HVAC system. It's okay to go ahead and put a meter on. Then my local energy company will come out, run the overhead lines, put the meter on for me. I can light up the house, but more importantly, I can put the HVAC system on in the house because my temporary AC is gone right now. I want to continue to condition this house during these last couple weeks of construction. I'm really only maybe 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks away from a final inspection, and maybe a month or less away from move-in. We probably could, if we really were hurrying, we probably could do it in 2-ish weeks. But as you can see, we got a lot of trades on site. We got a lot happening. This has been a great episode. Hopefully you've learned something. But let's come back. We'll at least install these pans, and I've got 1 or 2 other things to talk about probably tomorrow, and we'll wrap up the episode. So I'll see you back here tomorrow. Okay, y'all, just back from the supply house. Let's wrap up this episode, and I'm going to show you a little measure of protection that I really like to take. What you're looking at here is some galvanized overflow pans. I've got one that was custom made for the dishwasher and one that's custom made for the Sub-Zero refrigerator that's going in. Now you're going to notice one of these has a drain line in it and one does not, so I'm going to show you why that is. But I got these fabricated locally. This is probably $200, $250, something like that. But trust me, this is going to add a lot of forgiveness to 2 water devices in the house that I do not ever want to cause a leak or a problem. So let's go in and I'm going to show you how we install these. Okay, y'all, so a couple things about these pans. Number one, these pans are galvanized. They don't really need to be stainless because they're not in a position where I'm super worried about rust. But let's talk about this one first. This is where the Sub-Zero is going to be. I'm going to switch my hat off with a light band so we can both see a little better. This pan is going to slide right over top of the existing hardwoods and fits like a glove. I love it. Notice that the pan stops short of the end of the toe kick, and the front of the pan does not have a lip on it. This is just a hem, basically. If I lift the pan back up, you'll see it a little better. You can see they put a hem on it where I had it made at the sheet metal shop, so it'd have a nice crisp edge here that's not sharp. And then the other 2 legs turn up by about 1 inch or so. So when I place this in place, I've got 2 things that I'm thinking and kind of worried about. Here's my water line for the refrigerator. I don't need this. This is just, you know, if this was going to be an open area, of course you'd want it, but I don't need it. So let's think about this. If I get a leak out of a line here or something bursts, I want to protect this location right here. You know, I want to make sure that where that water, let's say, is flowing out of here, if it was coming this direction, I don't want that water getting in between the sheetrock and this plastic kind of case. Same with the sides and same with the top. So I think I'm going to use a little non-authorized use for some Huber zip tape. I'm going to grab Nathan and have him zip tape this all the way around on top of the sheetrock, starting at the bottom and working his way around the top. And then we're going to use that same zip tape to tape between the sheetrock and the pan and the cabinets in the pan on the sides. And then I'm even going to take, I don't know, maybe a 1/2 inch or 3/4 piece of zip tape and tape the front of the pan to the hardwoods, with the idea being if a leak kind of sprung somewhere, that this isn't going to drain, but what it is going to do is it's going to try to prevent water from going back underneath the hardwoods, and it would kick it forward so we would know, oh my gosh, there's water coming out. And so it's really just not as much an overflow pan, but more like a inspection pan or a, hey, I got a problem pan. Now, on the other hand, I did go the extra mile and take the precautions on the dishwasher pan. So let's look at that. Again, this is galvanized. This one has about a 1-inch lip on the sides and the back, but here's what's different. On the front, this pan only has about a 1/4 inch lip because I need that dishwasher to come up and over this, but I still wanted something to hold the water. And then you're going to notice this, if you watched my previous episodes, this is a rough end right here with a P-trap that goes straight to the outside. So that is not connected to the sewer system. That literally just goes right to the slab to the outside. So at some point before we're done, we're going to drop a whole thing of mineral oil in there so that that P-trap will continue to stay wet. If we dropped water in there, eventually water would evaporate, whereas mineral oil will never evaporate and also never goes rancid. Unlike, you know, let's say olive oil or something that might smell in time, mineral oil was not. Here's the moment of truth though. Did I get my measurements correct when I gave this to my fabricator? We are about to find out. So you see this pan fits in, and if I got it right, woohoo, hallelujah, it works. All you're seeing here is just this nipple is going straight down into that emergency drain. There's no connection needed. This isn't a shower pan, right? If something were to happen, that nipple goes down about 1.5 inches. I'm not worried about back pressure. I'm really just leaving an emergency space so that dishwasher goes out. It's going to be solved. Now, same unauthorized use of zip. I'm going to zip tape between the pan and the cabinets and the zip and the drywall on the back. I might even stitch that down with a little bead of Lexel or something like that at the very top of the line just to make sure it doesn't peel off over time. And then when the appliance guys come and set the appliance, they're going to have to set it into that lip. You're going to notice, just like the other one, we cut it off right at the front of the toe kick. Actually, there's still an applied toe kick, so this will actually be slightly behind the toe kick. But we're good to go, I think. Let me give my light band headband to Nathan. Let's get some taping done, and we'll come back and see it in a minute. All right, y'all, as you can see, there's nothing to it. Look at that. That looks fabulous. Really, anybody could do this at any time for a refrigerator. And frankly, you could probably do the same method without a drain for a dishwasher, but dishwashers traditionally are more leaky than refrigerators. So I figure the chance of the ice maker is slim. This is not slim. It's maybe slightly above slim. So I really like the way this turned out. I think this is a great detail. It's, again, not that expensive and provides a lot of forgiveness. Anything we can do to combat water, which is our #1 enemy. All right, y'all, speaking of leak detection, and we spent a ton of time and effort getting the pans right, I want to tell you about another system that's actually part of the drop softener, and I have a special guest on the job. Billy, good to see you, brother.
Matt, good to see you.
Thanks for coming by. So Billy is with Chandler Water Systems. You might suspect that he's with them, considering he has the same last name. Billy, we got the system all up and running. We got it connected to the hub. We talked about this earlier in the episode, but what I haven't talked about is your leak detection system. Talk to me about this.
Yeah, it looks great. What the leak detection system does is it enables us to use the softener's ability to shut the water off internally by sensing leaks throughout the home. So if you wanted to place that in a high potential leak area and it identifies a leak, it tells the hub, which tells the water softener to shut the water off, alleviating the problem.
I really like this. So what's happening here is this has a couple AA batteries that come with it, and this is what's powering it. By the way, this system can either operate through Wi-Fi or can operate with Bluetooth. So if you just want a local network, if you're afraid of putting your system onto the web, you don't have to. This will also work locally. But we've paired this already locally with my phone. Show me how this works. Can we actually get a little
demo? So if I go ahead and kind of wet this for you here, you can see we wet the leak detector, and now it's sending a signal to the softener to shut off the water. The other thing you'll notice is since the leak was detected from the leak detector, it's going to release the pressure to the home, so it's depressurizing the lines right now too. So if it doesn't continue to just kind of pee the pressure out that leak area.
Oh man, that's amazing.
Now if you were to use the app to just turn the water off proactively, it would remain under pressure. But since it knows a leak was identified, it
bleeds off that water. And this is our drain line right here, so that's why you heard that water dripping down the drain.
That's correct.
That's pretty amazing. Now another cool thing about this is you can extend that. So if you wanted to mount this on the wall, for instance, at my laundry where my washing machine is, we've mounted this on the wall, so this will just stay on the wall. So this is a remote probe. This will plug in and extend my probe. So now I can have this on the bottom of my pan. Now I'm going to use this for my water heater. I'm going to use this for my washer and dryer. I'm going to put one underneath my dishwasher pan, and you could even add these up in your bathrooms. I'm always worried about a kid's tub overflowing or something like that. These are really inexpensive, and these give you a lot of forgiveness in the system. This is really impressive.
For sure, you can add 20 to 30 of these in the home if you wanted to.
Yeah. Tell these guys how they can learn more about the drop system, Billy.
Sure. If you would like to learn more about drop, just visit dropconnect.com. We've got a lot of different products. This is the city water softener. which means it's got carbon and ion exchange resin in it. The carbon just adds the ability to remove the chemicals and chlorine and things on
gotcha.
top of softening the water. But there's a whole line of filters, softeners, protection products for the home.
Yeah, this is more than just a standard softener. I've been really impressed as Billy and I have walked through the software. We can change the hardness setting on this so that if I'm in a harder area or less hard area, I can change the amount of output on this. Super impressive. I did have one last question though.
Sure.
How often would I have to change or ever that resin that's inside this thing?
Yeah, so with this, one of the other benefits of the carbon in there is it protects that resin. The resin is like a plastic that over time would break down from the chlorine. With the carbon removing that first, you know, it's going to extend the life of that resin to 10, 20 years.
Oh wow, a long time.
Yeah, a long time.
So a decade or two before we're gonna have to mess with this.
For sure.
But of course we're gonna have to add salt on occasion.
Yep.
And I really like that this app will let me know, hey, the salt is getting low. You got a couple days to go ahead and change it. That's
Yeah,
you got
for sure.
a really dialed up system,
Yeah.
Billy.
Thanks, Matt.
Guys, you can learn more about this at dropconnect.com. Let's go check out the water heater. We saw this before as it was coming into place. This turned out great. Remember, I've got a Schluter pan underneath there for this water heater. My LG heat pump water heater, this happens to be the 80-gallon model. This is a big boy. And I've got my buddy Voya, who works for them, coming into town in a week or two. We're going to talk about this, and we're going to talk about the heat pump dryer from LG. So stay tuned. We'll talk about those details. I'm noticing that the plumbers actually didn't quite finish up. This has a condensate line right here, which still needs to get plumbed to that floor drain. And we've got a detail on that Taco recirc pump. They've got a really cool controller for that. So we'll show you that in the final episode. Stay tuned for the next 2 episodes. We have our mechanical final and commissioning episode. That's gonna be a lot of fun to see how we get all those systems up and running. I'm gonna show you how we've controlled those and what those systems do in this house. And then we've got a final wrap up when we uncover everything. And we're gonna be able to see the beauty of all these Kohler fixtures and all this incredible visual comfort lighting that we've got in the house. This is gonna be really fun. I'm looking forward to wrapping this up. We're maybe 3 weeks from final completion over here. Big thanks to our friends at Chandler for sponsoring today's episode. They're the manufacturer of the drop water system. And of course, Builders First Source, we've done this incredible series with them. If you're just seeing this for the first time, go back and watch our other episodes. We spent a lot of time talking about ReadyFrame and the digital tools that we used here. And I think one of the things that's going to be fabulous about the final episode will be to say, hey, let's look at the final finished house and see how close it is to the renderings that we produced through the BFS platform at the very beginning of the job. I think you're going to be shocked at how similar this house turned out to how we expected it to turn out. All right, guys, we'll see you next time on the Reisinger Build.